Hello, Year 11. I hope you're all okay. Mrs. Romney here, and I just wanted to take a few minutes of your time just to talk to you about the A-level history course that we offer at Meopham School. So, what is A-level history all about? Well, I'm going to go through each of these sections in a bit more detail in a moment, but just to give you a quick overview, A-level history covers three key areas. The first thing we need to do is something called Paper 1 or a breadth study, and for that we look at Tsarist and Communist Russia from 1855 through to 1964. Paper 2 is called a depth study, and in that we look at the Wars of the Roses between 1450 and 1499. And then the third paper is actually not an examined paper. It's completed in school, a bit like a piece of coursework. And that is a personal study, an independent historical inquiry on a topic of your choice, guided by your teacher, marked by your teacher, then externally verified. But it's an opportunity for you to explore a historical period or focus that interests you. So let's have a look at those courses in a little bit more detail. So the first part, I'm just going to move me out of the way a little bit. The first paper, Paper 1, like I said, we look at Tsarist and Communist Russia from 1855 through to 1964. Year 12 looks at Tsarist Russia and the last three Tsars. And essentially what we're trying to do is to work out, how did the Tsars rule Russia and why did it all go so horribly wrong? So we start with the Crimean War in 1855 and the rise to the throne of Alexander II. We spend some time looking at the reforms that Alexander II makes and the ways in which he tries to improve and modernise Russia. We look after his assassination in 1881 at his son's rule, Alexander III, and how he tries to counteract some of the actions that his father has taken and the ways in which his style of leadership affects the political stability within Russia in this period. And then finally in Year 12, we finish by looking at Nicholas II, the last Tsar of Russia, the last Romanov. The Romanov dynasty had been in charge, ruling Russia for around about 400 years. But in 1917, some of you may know, there was a Bolshevik uprising, a group of opposition rebels who seized control of Russia and ended up murdering the Tsar and his family. So Year 12 is really looking at those last leaders, those last Tsars of Russia, and how they ruled, why they ruled in a particular way, and what the problems were with it. In Year 13, we then move in to have a look at the communist era, starting with the Bolshevik Revolution in 1917 and the rise of Lenin, and then moving through to have a look at Uncle Joe, Joseph Stalin, and his leadership of Russia, and then finally finishing with Khrushchev, Nikita Khrushchev, and how he tried to take Russia in a slightly different direction after Stalin's death in 1953. So it's a look at political leadership, but it's also a look in both of those years at social history. What was it like to be a Russian under the Tsars? How does it change under the communist leaders? And it's really a study of change and continuity. What stays the same? What is different? What gets better? What gets worse? And the reasons and the contextual considerations for why those things happen. So that is called our breadth study. The depth study, like I said, is having a look at the Wars of the Roses from 1450 through to 1499. So this is British based and it's also medieval history. It starts in Year 12 looking at the House of Lancaster, okay, the Red Rose, if you like, okay, thinking about the origins of the conflict, why does the war begin, specific events, focusing on things like the Barons' War, and then why does it all go wrong for the Lancastrians and how and why do the Yorkists start to take control. Part 2 looks at the House of York. We've already talked about how they came to power. There's a specific focus on the rule of Edward IV. And then why does it go wrong for the Yorkists, and how does the Yorkist dynasty finish? Obviously then moving into the rise of the Tudor family and the emergence of Henry VII as king. Game of Thrones is widely considered to be based around the Wars of the Roses, the family feuding, the factions, the scramble for the throne, the intrigue, the murder, the mystery. All of those things will be explored and considered during the study of the Wars of the Roses. And then, like I said, Unit 3 is your historical investigation, your opportunity to pick a topic and explore it, take it in a direction that you would like to go in. So your question has to broadly cover 100 years, and you have to write between 3,000 and 4,000 words on your chosen topic. Now, obviously, you will be guided by your teacher, both in terms of the historical contextual knowledge and also in the skills needed in order to be able to do that effectively. But the historical investigation not only being, an opportunity for you to explore a period of history that interests you, but it's also really brilliant at building skills, particularly skills that will be useful and transferable to university. It's very similar to a dissertation, for example, but also skills that will be really required by future employers. And I will come back to that idea in a moment. So that's what we do in terms of the content, but what might your lessons look like? Well, obviously, there is a focus on essay writing. If you are somebody that enjoys building an argument, constructing and weaving together ideas and presenting a viewpoint to give a balanced or sustained judgment, then this is the subject for you. Essay writing is at the heart of A-level history. But there's also huge amounts of opportunities for discussion and for debate. A-level history focuses around not only knowing what other historians think about the period studied, but also developing and and consolidating your own opinions and your own points of view. And the best way to do that is to discuss it, to debate it, and to play off your ideas against other people in your class. So discussion and debate are also central to A-level history lessons. There is a lot of reading to do. Both of the examined units have their own specific textbook, but we also encourage you to do as much wider reading as you are able to do. Some of those texts are provided for you or are studied in class or used via homework. But we also encourage you to visit the library, to use online resources, and to develop your understanding by having a look at as wide a range of different sources, both primary and historical interpretations by secondary historians, as much as you are able. Like I said, the different topics that we cover mean that we look at social, political, and also military history. We have a look at what it's like for the people. Okay, how do these events affect the lives of the people? Do things get better? Do things get worse? What changes? What stays the same? What develops? And what moves forward? We also study political history, so systems of control, comparing Tsarist leadership with communist leadership. They should, in theory, be politically very different, but we will examine whether or not that turns out to be the case. And also through the Wars of the Roses unit, looking at systems of power, methods of getting into power, methods of holding on to power, and how the politics of the country are affected by those things. But there's also a focus on military history. In the Wars of the Roses, it is a war, so looking at the military side of things, the development of that. In the Russian unit, we cover a range of different wars, the Crimean War, for example, the Russo-Japanese War, and also obviously the impact of World War I and on World War II to the leadership, but also the people within Russia. And then finally, it won't come as a surprise, especially if you already study A-level GCSE history, that source analysis is a key feature of A-level history. primary sources, having a look at what the people who were there at the time thought. But also there's a huge amount of focus on secondary sources and analysing the interpretations of published historians. But not just accepting that they know best, but challenging those interpretations, building your own interpretations and playing ideas off against each other. So lessons are varied. There's a variety of different topics and techniques, and lots of opportunities for you to develop your own opinions on the things that we will study. I mentioned before that history is really good for those applying to go to university, but there's also a huge amount of transferable skills that will apply to apprenticeships and the workplace. So what's good about A-level history? Well, essentially we can break it down into 4 key areas. A-level history helps you to learn about people, to learn about interactions between people, motivations, the effect of emotions, the way that people can work together, but also the way that they can pull apart. It's great for team building. It's great for discussion activities and showing that you can work alongside other people, as well as understanding about people and how they have worked together or against each other over the course of history. Obviously, it's useful for learning about countries, societies, and cultures. We're going to look at 2 very, very different periods of history. We're going to have a look at how some of the conflicts and situations that we face in the world today have come from some of those historical situations, and how things that haven't been particularly well dealt with in the past might have repercussions for us in today's society, for example. History is also particularly useful in helping to demonstrate that you can utilise and assess a range of different types of information, that you can pick out key details, that you can identify the difference between truth and bias, that you can look for propaganda. You can recognise where things are not quite as they may seem, which is really useful, not just in careers, but also for your own personal lives. Being able to take a piece of information and not just accept it at face value, but work out what it is that you need to get from that information. And finally, as I've already said, it's about being able to present an argument, present your ideas in a coherent and in an effective way that makes sense to other people. So having the confidence also to be able to defend your point of view with specific and well-selected pieces of evidence. So history lends itself to a wide variety of careers. Maybe you're interested in going into teaching. Maybe you're interested in working in the media or in journalism. That idea of being able to recognise truth, fact versus fiction, for example, will be really useful if that is a career that you are interested in. If you're interested in a career in law or in politics, if you're thinking about doing a law degree or becoming a solicitor or working as an MP, then history is a really, really valuable A-level qualification to have under your belt. But it's much wider than that. Perhaps you're interested in going into film, for example. You could be a historic advisor to a director about a specific period of history and show that you're able to identify key features of a particular period of time. Perhaps you're interested in becoming an archivist or a keeper of records, maybe in a museum, maybe as a curator role, maybe in a library, or maybe actually being a historian and archiving and going through records and coming up with your own new conclusions and ideas. Are you interested in the civil service, working for the Ministry of Justice, the Ministry of, the Home Office, the Foreign Office? All of those roles will respect your ability to be able to work with other people, to recognise other cultures, and to be able to present convincing and coherent arguments. And finally, also public services. The police force, for example, always recognise A-level history as a really strong qualification to have under your belt. Obviously, these are just a few examples. A-level history is a fantastic qualification to have, and the transferable skills that you have will really help you in any single direction that you choose to go into. I want to finish finally by thinking about some of our students. We've introduced A-level history fairly recently at Meopham School, but the students that have started the course are doing absolutely fantastically, and these are some of the things that they have said about their A-level history course. So it can help you to improve your analytical skills and also the ways in which you present an argument. One student said, if you like history, you will love this course. It has a bit of everything and the topics are really interesting. Another student said, I really enjoy the opportunity to learn about a topic and then to share and develop my own opinions on it. I think for the first time in A-level history, your own opinion is just as important as the interpretations of historians. And being able to develop that and really hone in your own understanding and interpretation is a really exciting skill to develop. And as a consequence of that, one student said it's great to be able to challenge the views of a respected historian. No longer do we just have to accept that, well, it's in a book, it must be true. We can start to pick apart those different interpretations. And finally, I can't wait to start my personal study and investigate something which is important to me. This is possibly the first opportunity that you might have had to really explore something that interests you and to look in detail at a particular period of history that you find interesting. Hopefully you found that a useful introduction to A-level history. If you've got any questions, please come and speak to me or Mr. Finch or Mrs. Woods, and we will obviously love to talk to you about A-level history and answer any of those questions. And hopefully we will see some of you on an A-level history course in September. Take care and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.